Hello. How are you? So I've heard it in my comments for a long time.
That's because American houses are flimsy. They fall apart. They're made out of wood. That's why. That's why you need AC.
And stuff like that. I never would have known people had that opinion of American houses. I thought our houses were the same as everybody else's. But no, apparently they're built like crap. Why so many American homes are flimsy? So I want to know. I don't know why it says, I didn't watch this. I must have accidentally scrolled it. Regardless, let's watch. I want to know.
You can hear
Cheddah's explaining this. Go check out Cheddar. Oh my gosh. That was too much for my computer to handle. Okay, here we go.
The walls.
Yes, these are what the comments say.
Footsteps up the stairs. Banging pots in the kitchen
I mean,
when you're
this is true.
across the house. That's just
Yeah.
life in most American homes.
I didn't know it was any different in other homes.
Walls are thin and the opposite of soundproof. And
Dang
something
it.
always needs to be fixed. And most homes aren't even that old.
That's true.
There should be no excuse that they're falling apart. But why are they like this, especially when other areas have sturdy, thick
This is exactly the type of comments
houses
I'm
that
talking
last
about.
hundreds and hundreds of years? The answer isn't just capitalism. So
My wife is texting me. I thought I blocked her so she wouldn't ruin my videos. Oh, hold up. Okay, that was my wife. She was stressed out about baby formula or something to feed the baby. I blocked her number, so, I mean, she's right out there. But I locked the door, so we should be good. I'm going to continue.
So don't click off the video just yet. It's actually a lot more complex, and the solution isn't easy.
Cheddar.
If you're looking for one quick thing to blame, you can look towards George Washington's snow. In 1832, the civil engineer was tasked with building a Chicago warehouse as quickly as possible from the local softwood. So he got creative. Snow used 2x4s to assemble hollow walls, several stories high. The method let individual workers handle assembly, leaving only one person to nail it all into place. Snow completed the warehouse in record time. The method was called balloon framing, and it became the construction
It does not sound sturdy. I'm going to admit it. It does not sound structurally sound. Your house is made out of a balloon.
method of choice in Chicago. But balloon framing didn't take off until the 1940s, when America was experiencing a post-war boom period. More Americans had money than ever before, and they wanted the American dream, a house. They could suddenly afford to buy homes in sprawling new suburbs, and
What a different time it was.
contractors knew they could make a killing if they could produce enough homes to satisfy the demand. Balloon framing and its successor, platform framing, allowed contractors to frame houses basically overnight. But there was
So you guys don't build houses out of wood?
something unique about balloon framing that made it only feasible in certain countries, like the US and Canada,
What could that be?
and not in Europe. Balloon framing requires a massive quantity of long, mature trees.
Okay.
And America had an abundance of super tall, mature trees. Plus, it was an easy
That's kind of fascinating, to be honest.
and cheap construction
The idea that just like the environment, the trees determine what kind of houses we build. Like that's why America's houses are built out of like crappy wood.
material for the newly growing suburbs. Wood is sturdy, yet flexible enough to withstand low-intensity earthquakes and tornadoes.
Why do I never hear about earthquakes in Europe? Is it just because I'm American and I don't hear these things? I feel like that's not it because I hear about, you know, earthquakes in Asia and South America, never in Europe, or tornadoes.
You want to hear about
Does
all
Mother
of
Nature just love Europe?
wood's good qualities? Check out our video on the subject here. In Europe, wood is still incredibly expensive because so few forests remain. And what they do have is heavily protected. So the average European home
Fascinating.
is built with brick, stone, or concrete, and they're many centuries old. These materials
This is so fascinating. as I didn't know this was the reason. I thought it was just because you guys were. I mean, honestly, the way the comments are, the way that the comments I see, they're like, oh, like Europe is just way smarter, way better. We use the stone, and we build our houses out of brick. You idiots use wood. But it's really like, you guys would use wood if a woodcutter could chuck wood, but you used it all up. You don't have any wood left. Interesting.
Materials can be sturdier and safer than wood. A concrete masonry wall has a, shocker, higher fire insulation property rating compared to a wooden frame wall. One of these concrete walls has a fire rating of around 4 hours till it's destroyed, as compared to a wooden framed wall, which only has a rating of around an hour. Insurance carriers also have long-term data suggesting that homes constructed of brick are less likely to be destroyed by natural hazards. And if saving money is your game, the U.S. Department of Energy estimates that you could save $340 a month, or over $4,000 a year on heating and cooling if you live in a brick house over a wood one.
Someone missed a decimal. There's no way. I'm sorry, but did she just say...
Energy estimates that you could save $340 a month, or over...
That's more than my energy bill is a month. And I live in a nice, dirty wooden shack. So, how would I save that much? That just doesn't make too much sense to me.
$4,000 a year on heating and cooling if you live in a brick house over a wood one. It's estimated that losses from wildfires have added up to $5.1 billion over the past 10 years.
That's
a number
gotta be
made
true.
even more bloated by all the wood-framed houses. Now, to be clear,
That's definitely true. I'm surprised that wood houses, just for the fact that for the fire-resistant aspect of brick houses, I'm surprised that's not mandatory.
wood isn't necessarily a bad building material. I mean, take a look at the Fairbanks house in Dedham, Massachusetts.
Hey, yeah, how long's that been there?
It's been standing since 1637. But in general, wood is harder to maintain.
My house was built in the 1920s. It's barely still standing.
In fact, without maintenance, many houses won't make it to 30 years. And to many Americans, that's just the right amount of time. The U.S. Census says that the average American moves houses 11 times in their lifetime. That figure across 16 European countries? About 4 times.
Wow.
Since Americans are constantly moving their homes, they don't need them to last as long. They expect a semi-new home wherever they go because with the increased owner turnover, regular maintenance isn't normally done. It's easier just to rip it down and start over fresh.
I mean, like I said, my house was built in the 1920s. So,
But why do Americans move around?
like, I see their point, but at the same time, I'm like, I think with the amount the population's gone up, it's more like we just keep building a bunch of new homes and the old ones, like more poorer people live in those ones. I'm like roasting myself. And, yeah. Am I making sense? No.
Around
I don't know. I just don't see houses being demolished very often, but maybe that's just me.
so much. You can blame the job market. In America, it's much more common to hop around between companies. The opposite is true in the European Union. The World Bank reports that the median tenure of the average US employee was 4 years, while the median tenure in the EU was 10 years. Part of that culture of constantly shifting jobs is moving to a new area to take that job, meaning you've got to move houses. So, short story, blame...
And when you get a new job, at least here in America, you're statistically likely to increase your salary by like 10% or something. So you might be moving up houses.
George Washington Snow. Long story, blame the shifting U.S. job market. Interestingly, we aren't the only country in the world to have famously flimsy houses. We share that title with Japan.
Really?
And they're actually worse than us. Houses in Japan depreciate like cars do in the US. After 20 years, a Japanese house typically loses all of its value.
What?
And is, on average, torn down just 30 years after being built. According to a paper by the Nomura Research Institute, it's a major obstacle to affluence for Japanese families.
Wow, that's fascinating. And I don't really understand because, so we have flimsy houses, Japan has flimsy houses, but the housing market in America has just exploded. This will not age well, I fear. Like in a couple years. But other than like 2008, house prices just, they only go up. But in Japan, they depreciate like cars.
Collective waste is approximately an annual loss of 4% of Japan's total GDP. The total amount of new houses built in Japan every year is on par with the United States, despite having only a third of its population, which is shrinking every year.
Crazy.
87% of Japan's home sales are new homes, compared to only 11 to 34% in Western countries. Part of the reason for this is that the Japanese love new things. Their frequent and severe earthquakes make old houses, cheap wood frame houses from the same post-war boom we had, dangerous and without proper seismic reinforcement. It's considered futile to invest in their maintenance or try to improve them. That's especially reinforced, the Nomura Research Institute says, by concepts of impermanence in the Shinto religion. Take a look at Issei's Grand Shinto Shrine, a huge religious site that is rebuilt from scratch every 20 years.
Yeah, that thing's crazy. I was reading about that the other day.
Unfortunately, it's very expensive.
How crazy is that their religion impacts their housing market that much?
When you apply that same principle to houses. Americans wanted cheap homes to fulfill their dreams of home ownership after World War II. But the tricks that contractors used to make that happen have made it easy for us to view homes as disposable and unworthy of repair. But times could be changing. A recent trend that hasn't unseated wooden framing yet is modular or prefabricated homes. Modular homes are constructed in sections away from the building site and then put together on the property. But they're actually framed with 8 to 10% more wood, so they're extra strong for transportation, and are designed to be sturdier than regular homes. Instead of...
On one hand, it sounds kind of cool. On the other hand, it sounds kind of like cheap.
nails and screws, walls are connected using joints and strong glues. It's a method that has become increasingly popular for making tiny homes, but hasn't managed to beat out balloon framing on the most important thing to contractors: price. Modular homes sell for less than regular homes, even though they can be slightly cheaper to make, so contractors avoid them in favor of more profit. If Americans decided to stay put in one home and invest in it, that might change. But the cheap efficiency of wooden framing and the necessity of moving to advance one's career are hard lures to resist, especially when everyone else is doing it. So I suppose you can really just blame it on trying to keep up with the Joneses. How many times have you moved in your life?
1, 2, from New York to Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania to Indiana. I moved twice in Pennsylvania. And then I moved to, when I went to college, then I went to a new apartment, then another apartment. I've moved 7 times, I think. All right. Thanks for watching. That was fascinating. Now I know. It's actually true. Our houses suck. But there's a reason for it. And yours would too if you hadn't cut down all the trees. Weird. Thanks for watching, guys. Go check out Cheddar. And I'll see you tomorrow, I hope. Bye.